Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. So we've got an exciting management panel today. We have a variety of panelists here. I'll introduce them in a little bit, but first I'm going to do some housekeeping rules for you to keep in mind while you hear this panel today. So first we're going to address, in case of an emergency, there are some emergency exits at the back of the room, so if there is an emergency, please use the one nearest to you. And the second would be, we're asking everyone to turn off their cell phones during this panel, so we don't want you taking pictures and flashing things like that. It is being live streamed, so we just want to make sure that we don't have any interruptions that way. This panel is also only an hour long, so please stay seated throughout the panel. Just to note, if you do leave, you won't be able to get your passport points and you won't be able to come back into the room. So just because it is only that hour-long session, okay? And there will be a question period at the end. So if you have any questions for our panelists, I would suggest that you write them down and just hold on to them until the end of the session when you will be free to ask those questions. And then, again, addressing the Learning Passport section of the panel. In order to be efficient, I would ask that each person complete the page in your passport before we come up with the stamps. So at the end of the event, or the panel I should say, Allison and either Colleen or Miriam will be coming up with the stamps to you, so you'll stay seated at the end. All right, so now I'm going to introduce our panelists. So we'll start at the opposite end of myself here. We have Gary Drohan from Bell, Canada, and then we have Janet Martin, who is here today from the Royal Bank of Canada, and then we have John MacDonald with the Alcohol and Gaming Division of Service Nova Scotia, and then we have Ken Lawrence from P&H Milling Group, or formerly Dover Flour. All right, so I'm going to start off with the first question for our panelists, and this will give them a chance to introduce themselves a little better to you. So would you be able to describe the organization you work for and your position in that organization? So we'll start with Gary.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, so I'm with Bell Canada, recently acquired by, or Bell Aliant recently acquired by Bell Canada. Does everybody know Bell Aliant is? I hope so. No? We provide telephone, internet, and TV services in Atlantic Canada. You may have seen, I hope you've seen our product FiberOp. It's a new offering in the market that it's a platform for internet, high-speed internet, and probably this demographic don't have home phones. I'm thinking maybe everybody's mobile. So Bell Canada has a mobile component as well. The work that I do is in the IT area. So I'm focused on managing the delivery and support of IT for our business. So that encompasses all the IT infrastructure that we have, all the IT applications that we use to serve our customers. So I'm focused on supporting and helping to advance those systems.
I'm Janet Martin, and as you mentioned, I work with RBC. And just to kind of give you a little bit of scope of who RBC is and where we are located, we are one of Canada's largest banks, and one of the largest banks actually in the world based on market capitalization. We are one of North America's leading diversified financial institutions and provide personal and commercial banking, wealth management, insurance, and investor services. And we also have a capital markets division, and we operate on a global basis. We have about 78, it moves, the number's a moving target, but about 78,000 full and part-time employees worldwide. And we cover about 16 million clients worldwide. And we are present in about 39 countries. And my role in that big picture is commercial financial services. I'm the vice president for a team of 9 commercial account managers here in the city that operate in industry specialized segments. And we are responsible for a book that generates about 16 million in revenue. We have about 850 client relationships that we are responsible for. And the breakdown is about 353 million in loans and about 450 million in investments, just to give you a bit of a scope of our business.
Hi, my name is John MacDonald. I'm the Executive Director for Alcohol Gaming and more recently Tax Revenue. So I'm work with the provincial government as a part of Service Nova Scotia. We're more or less basically the SIN organization. So we license and we regulate alcohol. We license the bars and the restaurants, all the gambling activity in the province, whether it's the QE2 lottery or Atlantic Lottery or the casinos. We classify all the film in the product, so anything that you see in the movie theaters or DVDs. We have a small movie theater in our office where we have 17 film classifiers that will actually go in and watch the movies and come up with a rating for them. And then more recently, we took on the responsibility for tax revenue collection. And so what that is fuel tax and tobacco tax. If you've seen like the Crime Stopper ads on television about illegal tobacco, we fund those, and we work with the RCMP to uncover illegal tobacco, particularly as pertains to organized crime. And the industries that we regulate they bring in about $5 billion worth of revenue to the province. So it's a fairly substantial industry, and it really touches just about everyone in the province.
Great. Good afternoon. Ken Lawrence, and I work for a company called P&H Milling. And as was mentioned earlier, it was formerly known as Dover Flour. Dover Flour, the organization was formed in 1807, so fairly old company. P&H Milling was formed in 1909. The Halifax flour mill was built in 1968, so 47 years ago. And they've been acquired by P&H Milling, and we're one of 7 mills across Canada. We also have a mix facility at the Halifax mill, so we would not only mill the flour from wheat, but we also then combine it or mix it with other ingredients to make well-known mixes for muffins or bagels or pizza dough, things like that. We also provide our retail and industrial products for the market throughout Atlantic Canada, Quebec, United States, Middle East, down in the Caribbean. So roughly we believe that around 85% of all baked goods consumed in Atlantic Canada comes from the flour at our mill. And I'm the plant manager. I've been there for about a year and a half, but I have extensive experience in manufacturing.
Excellent. All right, so as panelists, we definitely want to hear about your careers, the paths that you guys have taken in your professional life. So the question is, how has your career evolved, and are you doing what you plan to do? So we'll start with Janet.
Absolutely not. I think, interesting question. I definitely would describe myself as an accidental banker. Did not grow up wanting or dreaming of being a commercial banker, but it is actually the perfect suit for me. I started out, I went to Mount Allison University and did my accounting degree, and I did back at that time in the mid-1990s, what most of my classmates were doing was thinking about working with one of the major accounting firms. And I was very singular focused and thought that was exactly the path that I would follow through. And I quickly realized in the first month with a fabulous firm that I was working with that it was not the job for me. And really what was missing at the time was the interaction with the people. So I was doing the audit path and the tax path, and at the entry level really not interacting with people, but I still loved numbers. So from there, I fell into commercial banking and started out with a credit union, right into commercial banking actually, and I realized that was a nice blend of what I love the most, both numbers and people. And then I realized I wanted to really be loyal and have an opportunity to grow within my career, and at the time I felt like those opportunities were fairly limited with a local one city financial institution. And that's when I went to RBC, and I started off in a sales role similar to what I'd worked with. at the credit union, and then I did that for about 6 years and really tried to master that craft, and then moved my family from Moncton, New Brunswick to Halifax into what was an interesting turn at that time based on my experience, but heading up the HR team for Atlantic Canada. So I met a lot of great leaders, great managers that gave me great career advice, and was exposed to many different parts of our business. From there, I went into risk management, so I would have adjudicated business loans for Newfoundland, Halifax, and Western New Brunswick up to $7.5 million. So felt the responsibility of making the right decision for our shareholders and our clients and our staff. And then they let me back out into the field in what I love the most today, and leading a team of 9 professionals here in what is a great and booming city. And so that's how I landed here. Lots of twists and turns along the way, and certainly not what I envisioned upon graduation day.
Very good. All right, now we'll hear from John.
Coming out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do in my life. I knew I wanted to go to university. I just didn't know, really what I wanted to do. Was pretty good at math. I had an older cousin who was just graduating from engineering. He said, "Why don't you give that a try?" So I gave that a try. So I am a professional engineer by education. Coming out of university was kind of at a bad time. It was we were just coming out of a recession, so it was a good profession to be coming out of because there was actually jobs out there for engineers. There wasn't a ton of them, but there was. So I initially did some research work up at Acadia University out of the physics department. I did that for about a year. Then I came back to Halifax and I helped design passive weapon systems for the military, for NATO. I did that for about 3 years. And then again, the nuances of that industry is that they're cyclical, so they'll do a contract and then work falls off. And so the particular place I was working for had a cycle of hiring and then laying off, so I got laid off from that position. Then I went up to Amherst and worked on industrial lighting, like we find in stadiums like this. I worked there for about a year. One of the things I found out of that was that I did not like the company that I was working for. I went up to do QA, quality assurance. That's what they had brought me in for, and the product they were making was a terrible product that they didn't really have any interest in fixing. So even though it was a job at the time, I said, I need to move on out of here because, to be true to myself, I just couldn't be involved with a company that really didn't believe in what I was trying to do. So from that, I came, coincidentally, the casinos opened here in 1995 in the province, and the organization that I'm with now was hiring, so I came into that. Came in as a senior gaming analyst, and what they wanted me to do was to use my background was in electrical engineering. So I was looking at the technical integrity of the slot machines to ensure that they couldn't be cheated, as well as the other table games in the casino. And I'm still with that organization today, so I came in at an entry level as a senior gaming analyst. I moved up to a director of investigation and enforcement, and then about 5 years ago I moved up to the executive director. And what I would say is that life takes you in funny places you'd never think you'd be. Back when I was in university, I was going out to the bars every night, and if someone had told me I'd be in charge of regulating alcohol, most of the people I went to school with still shake their heads and laugh.
All right, and so I had said I had about 25 years plus of manufacturing experience. Never thought I'd follow in my father's footsteps, but here I am. He was a plant manager for a photo finishing plant here, and I worked there through the summers while I was going to school, and quickly became a department lead in there. And from there, I went on to a new furniture manufacturing company that was opening up in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and they were producing furniture for IKEA. I became a lead machine operator for there, and then became a supervisor, and the production manager at the time then brought me in as a production technician. Then I had the good fortune of working with other young, energetic or enthusiastic production technicians in Europe to really understand manufacturing and the process flow, efficiencies, operational efficiencies, and so on. And then eventually then became a production manager for another, I guess, success story here for AC Dispensing, or better known as Sure Shot. And they manufactured the cream and sugar portion-controlled dispensing units for Tim Hortons, Starbucks, MacDonald's, and so on. And so I ran that factory for about 4.5 years, and then became director of operations for a medical device manufacturer, making a medical device based on blood coagulation testing. And I worked there for 6 years or so, and then decided to say, well, what else is out there, and what else haven't I done in manufacturing, and found P&H Milling, or Dover Flour. And now I'm managing that facility there with about 45 employees on the floor.
All right, and then we'll hear from Gary.
Thanks. I guess maybe some common themes here. My background is in engineering as well. Yeah, you know, are you doing what you plan to do? I'd say not. I probably, a bit like John, was following, you know, maybe some aptitudes I had for math and stuff, so I did engineering. When I graduated from engineering, I got a job in the food industry, working for Cavendish Farms in Prince Edward Island. So they make frozen food, French fries primarily, but other frozen foods. So I mean, at that point, I think I was looking for work, right, and really needed to pay the bills. I did that for a bit, but what I realized, if you're going to, you know, and this is probably something that I'll talk about later, is sometimes you need to think about where your work may take you. And what I realized, although the food industry was very interesting and there was a lot of opportunities there, you were going to be living somewhere typically close to the source of the food product that you needed. So you often were going to be in a rural area, which was not something personally that I liked and wanted. So I realized that it probably had limited potential for me. The next part of my job, I worked for Canada Post. Again, my background is industrial engineering. Canada Post was making major investments in efficiency and so on. And I got a job there. I worked for them in Ottawa, eventually moved to Vancouver with Canada Post, and eventually became the engineering manager for the mail parcel sorting plant in Vancouver. And again, I guess there's a theme here around location. At that time, though, my wife and I very much wanted to move back home to the Maritimes and have a family, and so we moved back here. And I guess the other side for me was I wanted to kind of round myself out. I found that, you know, as an engineer and in an engineering role, that there was other parts of business that I wanted to understand. When I returned to Halifax, I went back and did my MBA. And from there, when I completed my MBA, I joined, at that time, MT&T. And so, you know, my work experience in those early days was really about taking technology, trying to apply it to a business to create efficiencies, not unlike some of the other panelists. So, and then I've been, really since that time, I've been with MT&T or Bell, Aliant, or Aliant, the kind of evolution of those companies. So I would say that, you know, are you doing what you plan to do? Like John, too, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I'm sure a lot of people kind of feel that way, but I kind of was generally pursuing an area, and then you're always checking for opportunities and seeing where the opportunities were and are, and then you make decisions. So that's kind of how I ended up where I am today.
Perfect, thank you. It's definitely interesting to see how careers can evolve and can go in unexpected directions, especially for those of us that aren't in our careers yet. So thank you for sharing those. So the next question would be, what do you like and dislike about your work, and what do you find the most challenging? So we'll start with John this time.
Okay. So the organization I'm with now, Alcohol and Gaming, I've actually been with them for 20 years now, which is, you know, nowadays, mobility is a lot more common. People don't tend to stay in jobs as long. One of the reasons I've been there for so long is because it's an area that I feel very passionately about. One of our main goals is protecting the public. So if we're out there regulating the bars, we're making sure there's safe conditions out there. We're making sure people that can't get cheated if they're out gambling. We're looking for illegal tobacco. Trying to keep organized crime out of all of these activities. So for me, protecting the public has always been very, very important. It's one of the reasons why I've stayed with this one organization. Aside from that, I'm in the position now that I have the opportunity to make changes to acts and regulations. So the laws that surround all these things are set out in either legislation or regulation. And I have the opportunity now to actually go out and make changes for the good, whether it's to improve safety. But also I've had a lot of success in reducing red tape, both within government for both businesses and for citizens. So there's a number of things we've done over the last couple of years that have taken millions of dollars off the costs of running government, and at the same time providing protection for the public. So for me, that's something that's really important. One of the things that I dislike about my work is that there's more red tape within government than there is outside of government. So as much as people complain about businesses, about there being red tape for business to operate, the workings within government are, to get anything done is three pieces of paper and 2 weeks, and it's just, there's a lot of red tape within government that people really don't realize. So that's sort of one of the things I don't like about what I'm doing, is because sometimes it's just frustrating. There's something that you want to do that's really good for the community, whether the business community or the public, and you know that it's a good thing, and it just takes so long to get it done. So I really find that frustrating. Another thing is governments tend to have a 4-year mandate. So if there's anything, the industries that I regulate are controversial industries. So we deal with, like I said, alcohol, gambling, film industry, pornography, tobacco. If we want to make any changes, there's widely divergent opinions within the public on those, because they're sort of moral industries. So you'll get one set of people that want to go back to prohibition on alcohol, and then you have another group that wants to be able to walk down the street with open beer and party everywhere. So, and they're they both feel very strongly about those positions. So it's difficult for us to move things forward sometimes, and particularly within the mandate of a government, because if it's very controversial, they have to be mindful of what the citizens want. It's just it's an area of government that has sort of different than anything else in government, and it's really been a pleasure. One of the things I find is that if you surround yourself with the right people, and I'll talk about that later, it really makes going to work fun, and I think that's really important. So that's all I have.
All right, perfect. Now we'll hear from Ken.
Okay. Being a manager by nature means that you're a problem solver, and you have an abundance of resources at your fingertips. And so that's what I like about it, and I like the fact that you have an opportunity to leave legacy behind. Working with people and mentoring people as well is a great benefit of being a manager. You get to see them and help them and support them in achieving their goals, which you need to realize that people are your most important resource as a manager. As far as dislikes, I don't really have any dislikes. I like my job. I like what I do. I've been doing it for a long time. But I would say that there's challenges. One person described it once to me, a mentor of mine said that as a manager, you're basically a plate spinner, if you've seen those at the circus, and you're spinning plates, and you just continue to spin as many plates as you can, and eventually a couple of plates will fall. And that's around setting priorities, and so that's sometimes a challenge because everybody has their own set of priorities, and as a manager, you're working with so many different people within the organization, and it's a matter of bringing them together and choosing the priorities together. And so sometimes that can be challenging. And like the red tape in the government, it's a lengthy process to sometimes get everybody together and to settle on the priorities. So yeah, that's all I have.
All right, thank you for sharing. Gary?
I wrote a few things down here. You know, I think what drew me to the work is technology, but when I think about it, what I really like about my work is we often deal in, one thing is we have customers. So I found in my early days, sometimes, you know, you're like, why am I doing this? Who is being affected by what I'm doing? So what I like about where I am now is I know there's people, if we do a good job, that they're able to do their jobs, they're able to serve our customers. So I know I'm adding value, I know I'm having an impact there. That's what I like about it. But also, you know, the thing I like is we often deal, in the IT world, we often deal with problems, or what we call incidents, where something isn't working as it should. And we'll often have a meeting, perhaps there might be, you know, on a telephone, could be on a conference bridge at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Like 2 weeks ago, on a Friday night, I had this happen to me, it was 7 o'clock. My family is in a restaurant having dinner. I'm out in my car on a conference call. There was people on the call from Bangalore, India, from Montreal, from Toronto, from California, all representing different products and technologies that were in this solution. And not any one person that was on that call could solve that problem. All very smart people, but they all, you know, these are systems that have many different pieces. So to me, it was very cool. It's very difficult. You have language challenges. You have people in different time zones. It's challenging. But when you work with people who are focused, you can accomplish a lot. And so that's one of the things I really like. Yeah, you know, red tape. I don't know red tape, but you know, sometimes I work relatively in this region for a large company. Now part of Bell, which is a national company. So a lot of times they'll have processes that are kind of mandated. I don't like that. You know, like maybe it's a, you know, maybe they make me go to a safety meeting and tell me that I shouldn't trip and fall. I don't find that helpful, but they do that. And so, you know, that kind of stuff happens. And as far as the challenge, the other side of it is that, you know, we operate in a very competitive, as Jan, I'm sure you do, in a competitive space. So the kind of like the environment is always changing. So maybe this year I've got, you know, this amount of resources to do the things I want to do. But if the market is changing, and the money that the company has to reinvest in itself may go to another area, that can be a challenge for me. All of a sudden I've got fewer resources to do what I want to do. So that can be a challenge because it's out of your control.
Amen. And I thought about the things that I like, and it was very validating for me that list was longer than the dislike. So I think, you know, some things that you probably wouldn't think of that I enjoy the most in my job is being connected to my community. So as I mentioned, we have over about 850 groups of companies that we work with. And if you think about, that's what I do day in and day out, is going out and connecting with those companies, understanding what their objectives are, and finding ways that I can add value and help them along in their journey. Before, when I started out my career, it was directly, and now it's indirectly in my leadership role. So I think you get a kind of a, if you have a curious mindset and you like to know what's coming, you get to be part of that before it's announced in all Nova Scotia. And if you really want to feel like you can connect and add value and support your community, it was also, I think that's one gift it's given me. My team, I would say I love. I think I'm a little biased, but I think I have the best commercial banking team in Halifax, maybe beyond that. And I think what I love about my team is the ability to have impact on their careers. So the age group and the demographic of my team ranges from early 20s to near retirement, closer, into the 60s. So being relevant and being who they need me to be in front of them at the time that they need me keeps me on my toes and challenges me in a healthy and productive way. And it's rewarding to see them achieve their career objectives too. So, and find ways, and sometimes in your career there'll be lulls. And we've had that happen on our team too, and to help them through that and feel valued. I put down, it sounds cliche, but it's true. For as many dreams as we make come true. We talk about your someday at RBC, and that's really for our clients and for my team directly. That comes back to that community piece. And I'm proud of our company. I think that's what you need to work, and somebody mentioned that earlier, you have to be proud of what you do and who you work for, because I spend more awake time with them than I do even my family. So you have to really connect with the values, and you have to understand them. I'll talk more about that later on. But my values truly do align to RBC, and I think that's really been something I like the most. Dislikes, I don't have any really. There's frustrating moments in certain days of the week. We are a highly regulated industry, and we are publicly traded and accountable, which is all good, but it creates structure, which can, if you let it, stifle creativity. And I like to think I'm creative by nature, so you have to find outlets for that in your day-to-day. So there certainly is opportunity, but sometimes you have to look through the structure to find the ways in which you can individually contribute and impact change. And you can encounter a lot of no's. So you can have a great idea that maybe eventually may get picked up along the way, but you're a stakeholder and you impact so many different parts of our business that if you're not passionate and you don't follow through with it, the idea can get lost. So I think that's one of the things I find the most challenging and maybe bordering on a dislike. And like you said, absolutely a highly dynamic, changing industry. If you've worked in banking over the last 10 years, we had a crisis a little while back, and it was very rewarding to be part of a stable banking industry within Canada, but it changed how we do business. And I think our clients' worlds are changing, and that impacts us too. So that's one of the challenges, to stay current, stay abreast, and you can't just keep up, you have to be ahead of it. And so what does that mean? At my level, we're not creating strategy, we're executing it, but you have to understand it. And so that means a lot of work for me to get to where I need to be to pass it on to my team.
All right, thank you all for sharing this, your experiences with that as well. The one quote that kept coming to mind was, with great power comes great responsibility. As managers, you're talking about the resources and the people that are around you, and yet that comes with a lot of responsibility in solving those problems and bringing forward the best solutions. So it's really interesting to hear about that in the real world, and seeing that, that as managers, there's a lot of good that you can bring to the table. So thank you for sharing that. All right, so we have another question. What do you see as the key management skills needed in organizations today? So we'll start with Ken.
Okay. All right. So the first one that I thought of was is pretty well common, is the open and honest communication. You have to build a rapport with those relationships that you build, and be able to freely express what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and also allow others to express themselves to you without retribution. And I think that's very important as a manager. And one thing that I try to practice is listening. And listening doesn't mean that you're waiting for your turn to speak. The other one I have is the thirst for continuous learning. I'm always learning in my role, and I believe that's an advantage to the organization and to myself. I went on to become a project manager. I'm taking my milling course now, so who would have thought I'd become a flour miller, but I'm on my pathway there, so back to hitting the books, which is great. The third point I want to make is keeping your finger on the pulse, and I think of that because there are many pulses that you will feel in an organization, and that's on the business side, or whether it's on the operational side, or whether it's on the employee side, and getting to know your employees and understanding where there might be, if they're feeling, discouraged or or down or feeling up, and what really made them perform well and so on, and where your business is going. So keeping the finger on the pulse is a key management skill. The other one I have is being able to step outside of the whirlwind. And if you think about it, as a manager, your life will become chaotic at times, and chaos will be around you quite a few number of days. And if you think or picture a hurricane, and if you are a manager within that hurricane, you'll be swept up, swallowed up, and you'll be part of the chaos. And a good manager, a good leader in an organization will have the ability to step inside of that eye of the hurricane where it's very calm, and you'll be able to then have a look at what's going on around you and make decisions appropriately to be able to guide the people or the organization through those chaotic times. And the last one I have is to embrace vulnerability. I believe it's a key to unlocking innovation and creativity, so not always needing to be right. Listening to other people, accepting when you may have made a wrong decision or a wrong move, and learning from it. And so those, I think, are the 5 key things for me.
All right. Now we'll hear from Gary.
Wow, that was a great list. Yeah, I would echo that last one. I think I'm trying to put myself too in the shoes of some of the folks that are here today. When so maybe you're starting on a team, and I think that one around, I think you'll find yourself in that position where you want to demonstrate your knowledge and what you know, but it's perhaps a bit of a cliche, but teamwork and being able to work on a team with others is an important skill. If you're going to solve a problem, and typically in my world anyway, there's multiple people involved. So being able to be on a team, to listen, but also I've also seen in hierarchical situations where folks on the team they're not confident to speak. They're afraid to become vulnerable, Ken, in your words, and so you have to kind of push through that. And hopefully you're in a place where you can do that. So you have to listen, but you also have to remember you're there to present, to deliver what you have, the value you have. So make sure you do that, and don't say, oh, well, he's the boss, we're going to do what he says. If you don't think he's on the right path, then you have to, and that's something I learned early in my career, especially in big companies where there's hierarchy, there's power plays or expectations sometimes that the leader maybe or the apparent leader is maybe the smartest person at the table. Quite often they're not, but they may, they bring a certain, they bring characteristics to that problem too. They can get things done. So think about that, and that's why I say I had also obviously communications, and listening is a key part of that. People will typically tell you what they want and we often don't listen. I think too, probably other ones that are probably well known, but I think are like in my type of work, project management. So whatever level you're at, to get things done, to have a schedule, to have an objective, to achieve your objective, to measure progress against your objective in terms of time, resources, money, that's a skill. I think no matter what level you're at, even if you are, if you're a project manager or doing a project, you need to have those skills. If you're a director or running a plant, you need to be able to interpret the reports on projects, and so that's very important. The other thing that I would just add, I had business case analysis. So we may all kind of work in different parts of a business, but the ability to understand an investment and a return on investment over time, if you were running the company, where would you put your money? You will have lots of areas to put your money, and someone's going to put together an analysis and say, well, here's the payback on this one, here's the payback on that one. Understanding that. I know in our business, we have large capital budgets. We are constantly competing with other projects for investment dollars. So you need to know So it's not enough to say, hey, this is a great project or a great idea. You're going to compete against someone else's great idea. So you need to understand the numbers behind your business case.
That's a really good
All
one.
right, Janet?
So I had communication, but maybe I'll give it a little bit of a different spin. I think absolutely listening and understanding what is being said, because sometimes the words aren't really representative of the meaning behind them. And I also put down knowing what questions to ask to be able, so it's around discovery questions, knowing what questions to ask to make the best possible decision in the least amount of time possible. And I think that's one of, when I think about all of I've advised leaders in an HR capacity over the years and had many managers in my lifetime. And I think the biggest risk is getting stuck in analysis paralysis. So you analyze, and you really have to be able to make a decision, justify it, and then move on. It might not be the right one or the best one, but you'll learn from it and be okay with that. So that kind of comes back to the vulnerability. I have change leadership and change management. You mentioned a little bit earlier, we talked about the level of change in so many aspects of so many industries and businesses. If to be relevant beyond banking, I think you really have to understand how to go about leading a change at various levels of different organizations, and also being part of a change. So both the employee and the management aspect, and there's lots of books and there's lots of courses, and then there's real life. And you can know all the theory, but putting it into practice, I think, is one of the biggest challenges we face. I also had resiliency. Not everything, you'll have a brilliant idea and you'll lead through possibly a change, and then you got 80% of your team with you and 20 not. And you need to be resilient and be able to meet people where they're at, or test an idea and get really good adoption, and then the strategy changes. And be able to adapt and go with the ebbs and flows. So resiliency, you can't be so stuck and steadfast in your way, or life will pass you by, which can be really career limiting. And I had authenticity. I think back over the years of those that I've worked with, and the things that matter most to me as a manager and a leader is being true to who I am. I have to deliver things in my own way for my team to believe that I'm behind it 100%. And if I'm not, I have to tell them that I'm not and what I'm working on. Because I can't stall change until I'm ready to be where the company needs me to be. So I think really being true to who you are, and having your voice all of the time, and understanding the power that you have in your position over others to influence them and how they choose to react or not to. That's a precious gift, and you have to use it wisely, and you have to be attuned to it. The other one I just kind of jotted down as I was listening to everybody speak was prioritization. Speaks to the spinning plates. There's no course, I don't think, necessarily on it that I've ever taken, but it's part of everything I do every day. And my mind works like a computer at night, and I'm constantly readjusting and waking up with a different plan. So that ability to know what's most important and to deal with that and not avoid tough decisions. Make those ones first thing in the day, and then let the rest of the day follow in. Because if you don't, you'll always be incredibly busy and not that effective.
Right, now we'll hear from John.
Just to build on some of what's been said here, the number one that I had down was change management as well. And it's my organization's been going through change for probably the last 5 years, just on a continual basis. And the thing about and it's so important nowadays because technology moves things so fast that if you're stagnant, your whatever business you're in is going to die. So your business is going to have to go through constant change. And in order for change to be successful, you have to plan for how that change is going to roll out, and your people have to buy into it. If your people don't buy into the change, it will fail. It will fail at some level. It could fail absolutely horribly. And so there's specific things that you can do. There's different processes. The one I usually use is ADCAR. There's courses taught on it. If you ever have a chance to take a course in change management, I would highly recommend it, because it doesn't apply to just business. You can use it for your personal life. But it's one of those key things. When you're doing something in business, you usually have one chance for it to work, and if you don't get it right, you're not going to get a second chance. So you really, in order for that to be successful, you have to plan for it. It just doesn't happen by accident. And your employees are so key to the success of anything you do in your business that you really have to make them understand why the change is necessary and what the outcome is going to be if it works and if it doesn't work. HR skills. I don't come from a human resources background, and Gary would probably see this as a lot coming from the technology side of things. One of the things that happens in business is you get someone that's at a lower level in management. They do really well. They do great work, exceptional worker. They're brilliant. They been very successful on projects, and then they get promoted up to their supervisory level, to the next level. The only problem is that they're great working on projects, but they've never received any training in human resources or how to actually deal with people. And it can really hurt an organization because they come in, they're elevated up into a position, and then they don't know what to do. So any sort of training you can get in that regard as a manager, I think is absolutely critical. And not just for the success of the organization, but because there's things that'll come up that you're just not ready to deal with. I have about 100 people working for me, and it's on a day-to-day basis. Some of the stuff that elevates up is just absolutely crazy at some point. But I've never received any training for it. I wish I had. And like I said, that really, I don't know about other industries, but particularly with technical people, that tends to be an issue because they're technically brilliant, but they just don't have the people skills to really work out well in that position. The ability to develop people, and I think this is something that you had mentioned earlier. One of the things that I actually get a lot of pleasure out in my role is to have the opportunity to help people develop as their careers. So I think that's a really important skill you have to be able to, you'll find there are people out there, particularly managers, that like to surround themselves by people, and they want to keep those people. They want to keep them there, and they don't want them to go up because they do good work for them. But a really good manager is very good at developing people and letting them go where they need to go. So I think getting that skill set in there to actually be able to help people identify, where they may want to go in their career, help them identify courses or programs that they can work on to develop themselves is beneficial. And you'll find that the people that, if you do that for people, they actually want to stay and work for you because they realize that you're looking out for their interest. Give people room to make mistakes. Early in my career, I had an absolutely excellent manager. He said, "I'll give you enough rope to hang yourself." And he did that, and what I mean by that is he would give me projects, and he said, you go out, you may fail, you may not, but I'm not going to be the one standing over you and constraining what you're doing out there. So you really need to have people, give people the opportunity to be creative, to not be afraid to make a mistake. I think that's just really important. It really helps an organization, look outside the box, look to new solutions. But if you're constantly on top of people, they just won't feel the creativity to go out and do that. And then the last thing I would say is surround yourself by smart people and then give them credit for the work. I think Gary had said something about not being the smartest person at the table. I'm rarely the smartest person at the table. I'm usually the most senior person at the table. Yeah. But what I've done is I've surrounded myself by very smart people that give me good advice. And most importantly is when they do something good on a project or they do good work, is to publicly give them credit for it. I've seen too many managers out there that surround themselves by good people, but then take the credit for it themselves. And you know what? People see through that. The people that are in the know will see through that. You give yourself. I have people that our organization. We rarely have any turnover in our organization. And I've got people that could leave to go to better jobs at any time. But one of the things I do is I give them as much credit as I can right across government. Anytime they've done well on a project, I sing their praises, just because they're the ones that are doing the work. They make the organization good, and I'm not going to take credit for that. And so that's what I would say is just really make sure you give credit where credit's due.
Excellent, thank you. Well, those are definitely some skills that we can learn and develop and start even learning in our own experiences as students, group work and things like that. It's clear that those can apply in a variety of settings. And I definitely would say that I see a common thread there would be flexible. I definitely see that from your management perspectives. All right, so the next question is, could you tell us about the types of jobs that might be available for students considering a career in management? I'm just going to tack on for time any advice that you would have for those students searching a job in management as well. So we'll start with Gary again.
I'm up again. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of time on this one. I tried to look actually on our website to see what, and I'm sure everybody here is capable of doing that, but you know, in the IT world, there's a lot of technical roles, and so there is that path, you know, that you might start out as a server administrator or database administrator, and then you can become a manager of groups that do that. So what you need, you know, to me, the model is you need an understanding of the technology or the what you're working with, and then you need to add those management skills to that. Once you do that, though, there are other, like in our work, there's postings today. They may not be public, but they're within the company, like contract managers. So people who, in our world, we contract for a lot of services. Okay, so we deal with other companies who provide services to us. We need people to manage those contracts, manage those relationships. Service managers is another large area in the IT space where you are. It's a role where you're often you have perhaps a technical team, or you interface with a technical team, but you also interface. Your customer would be someone in the business, you know, so you're interfacing with them, and they're saying they have problems. You've got to turn around and translate that problem into back to your team to solve that problem. So those types of jobs are available. Project managers is always one that is, we're always looking for good project managers. But again, you need to, you know, that's a skill that can span over a lot of different areas. You need to have some technical knowledge in support of that. And I'm sorry, what was the second part? Just some advice
Just
on?
some advice for students looking for jobs in the management field.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, a couple of things that just came to me, well, I don't know about looking for jobs, but I was thinking about, you know, the next question, I guess, around, and I was thinking about things like volunteering, getting to know other people, talking to other people, be curious. You know, that idea of continuous learning, I think, is one that's related to that. You have to be curious, you have to be out there, you have to be talking to people. What are they doing? How did they do it? And I think volunteering is a great way to do that. You know, like you can meet a lot of different people in different in a different setting then, and you can learn from what they've done, and you can learn about what types of jobs are out there. So, a couple thoughts there.
All right, Janet?
So I think the paths to management at RBC are endless. They really are. There's our service stream. So if you've ever been in and transacting at the bank, which is happening less and less face-to-face, there's our service team. There's branch managers. There's commercial banking, wealth management, our contact center. So every line of business has multiple layers of management. But I think you just have to determine your entry point and then do it. And I think credibility was a theme that kept coming through to me. What doesn't work, and I've seen happen over my career, is people coming in and wanting to be right at the top on the first day. Credibility is earned, and you have to find your entry point in a stream and just to try things out. So I think, you know, that would be a piece of advice, is just, you know, take a chance and find a way to contribute. In terms of the second part of the question, what advice? I said, you know, I really think it's important to spend the time. Interviews are one way, and it's a two-way street. Interviews are not just the employer interviewing the employee anymore anyways. I'm actually less inclined to hire if you're not interviewing me well. It tells me that you may not be as prepared as I need you to be, and maybe not as invested as I want you to be in a long-term employment scenario. So I think really come prepared. Be prepared to look and find out about the company that you're going to work for in obvious ways, looking at their website, talking to people that work there, and less obvious ways. Go into their shop, look around if it's that type of environment. Really have great questions, discovery questions about things that matter to you that you can bring to that interview. I think it will never work if you don't know what you're trying to achieve. So if you don't know what development opportunities you're looking for, what experiences you want to have, then anything will do. And I try to, the best advice I had in my career was from a manager, Greg Grice, who was on the board at MSVU back in the day. And it was always make career moves that open 2 or more doors and not just one. Makes you more relevant, introduces you to more individuals that can influence your career, and gives you more opportunity to have different experiences. So a piece of advice I had that I carry with me every day.
Excellent, thank you. John?
The way the government works is rapidly changing. Going forward, government in a couple of years is going to look completely different than it does now. We're really moving away from the in-person stream to an online stream. So, for instance, if you want to get your driver's license renewed or your vehicle permit renewed, we're really trying to push people to the online stream, which is IT intensive. In-person is very expensive. A model as opposed to online. Also, the average age in government is fairly old, so there's going to be start to be a turnover. Some people, they're taking their time to go, but so there are a lot of opportunities in government. What I would build on is something that was said earlier, is that when I remember shortly after I graduated, the big thing at that time was everyone went to school just to get an MBA. So they weren't getting other degrees, they were going in just getting MBAs. And I was in the workforce for probably about 5 or 7 years, and the workforce was inundated with people that came in with no other sort of background, just an MBA background, and expected to be coming in as a senior manager. And none of them were getting any jobs because there was no experience there. So you do have to choose an entry point. It may not be what you want to get into to begin with. I can give you a good example of that. Back when I was a director, I hired an admin assistant, a secretary, and she had a background in a legal background. It wasn't a lawyer, but it was a law degree, not a law degree, but no, it wasn't a paralegal. It was I can't remember what it was, but it was in a legal type background, and she just got into government through there by taking that admin assistant position, and then helped develop her skill set by sending her on different courses, and she's now my manager of licensing. So she deals with all the liquor licensees in the province. Absolutely excellent person. But she had to come in at an entry level, and then she's just been able to elevate herself right up. So don't come in thinking that you're coming right out of university and coming in at a really high level job. You do have to set your sights to say, if this is what I want to do, I may have to go here first before I can get to there. And I think that's important. What I'll say about what you're going to do for a career, the first job that you have, you're probably not going to be doing that for the rest of your life. Okay. I'm an engineer, as I said, by education, but I haven't practiced engineering in 15 years, and I probably never will again. Well, I had to go back to school because I don't remember anything from it anymore. But most importantly, whatever you do, you have to like. And I can't stress that enough. I spend probably twice as much time with I'll call them my work family, as I do with my home family. And that's just the way it is. I mean, you're out there, you're working, working weekends sometimes and evenings. I'm spending a lot more time with people at work than I am at home, so I better like them and I better like what I'm doing. So really, you have to like what you're doing. That's what I'd say. We have one compliance officer, so these are the people that go in the bars. He's 75, and he's not showing any signs of retiring because he likes what he's doing. I think he's crazy, but because I won't be working at 75. But he really enjoys being out there, and so if he was doing something that he didn't like, he wouldn't be continuing to work. So it's really important that you're out there doing that. And the other thing I would say is don't look at what's just popular now, what's the hot topic now in school or in industry. Try to look at what's coming down the road about 5 years ahead of time, because what's happening is what's popular now, everyone is there getting educated for it. They're all going to come into the workforce at the same time. You want to be looking for a field where there are going to be a good number of jobs when you actually come out. So you got to be a little more proactive and take a look around at where industry is going.
All right, perfect. Ken?
Yeah, just to add on to what the other panelists were saying. I mean, as John said, he's not gonna. He's an industrial engineer. Electrical, industrial. I'm probably the only practicing engineer that's not an engineer at the table. So you never know where you're going to end up. But I just think, as a manager with those type of skills, you'll be able to leverage the resources at your fingertips in a way that's going to help benefit the organization you're working for. And I would say, I heard the word passion. I think you have to follow your passion, but it has to be reasonable, I guess. And your passion may be for music, but there might be an avenue that can take you in, and as a manager, you can excel at. And I don't believe that opportunities necessarily come to you all the time. I think that you're surrounded by a lot of people, and in this day and age with social media and so on, I think you have to let people around you know where you want to go and what you're willing to do to get there. Take challenges, and one last bit of advice, I guess, on pursuing your career is be that go-to person. I think it's a very important step in being recognized and as being that go-to person.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's give them a round of applause and thank them for coming today. We are almost out of time, but is there anyone that would have a question for the panel? So we may have time for two, but we definitely have time for one question. Is there anyone that has a question for our panelists? Yes.
I know that a lot of management positions you also have to do in the evening time. I remember you were talking about that. Do you guys have any systems or strategies that you would to deal with that, to balance your personal life as well?
Laptops and Blackberries?
Yeah. Yeah, I would. That's a good point. It's a good question. And we do work hard. Work-life balance is something that we work at. But I think for someone in my role, I as Janet said, I have some technology. I have a laptop and I have a BlackBerry, so I can often, for me, that's I don't actually mind so much working kind of outside of 9 to 5 if I know I can have the flexibility to do something else perhaps in that 9 to 5 window. So that's not always something you can have, but it's it goes back to communication. So if you're in a position, you're going to have to discuss that with your manager, your boss. How do we deal with those situations? If you want me to be available at these hours, I need the flexibility to be able to go take my kids to a hockey game early on a Friday kind of thing. And that's usually there. And yeah, I probably wasn't the only person in a car on a phone. You know what I mean? People are doing that more and more. You have your phone and you're willing to sacrifice some personal time in order to meet a deliverable. So it's work-life balance, and it's a scale, and to me it's always moving. It's never static. So sometimes you feel like, wow, I'm working so hard, and other times it goes the other way for you. So you just got to watch for that.
I would say technology, but I'd also say being very deliberate in making sure that you delegate what you can. That liberates your time, and trusting people so that they can get developmental experiences. It may be just something that you have to do methodically, and stepping outside of what you would normally do in kind of that rut of a routine, and finding something that could be a really valuable development opportunity for someone else on your team. That does free up your time. I have 2 young children, 9 and 10, and I really don't work past 6:30 at night, and I'm later coming in the morning because I drop them at school. So supportive structure around you and a family helps definitely a lot, but it's ebbs and flows and gives and takes. That's with your family and that's with work. So I think finding that balance, and definitely we're a pay-for-performance company, so when you're on the tipping scale, I might be taking that call on the BlackBerry at the basketball game in between periods, because there's an incentive for me to do. So I think just kind of balancing that all out, it happens over time, but you do have to think about it. It's a good question.
Much like Gary, actually, we just live around the corner from each other, and we're both engineers, and we both have kids in lacrosse and hockey, and we coach. So it's the same sort of thing. Where I don't work a lot in the evenings. I do work some, but I'm always on the BlackBerry. If I'm in a line at a grocery store, I'm doing work. Right? If there's downtime anywhere, if I'm at a practice, and the kids are out on the ice, and if I'm not running the practice, I'm up in the stands, I'm getting work done. So the downtime that I get there allows me to then, when I am coaching, if I got to go during the day and do something, I'm going to a hockey tournament or something like that, it's give and take, right? So it's not that you're always in the evenings. If you're in the evenings, it's because you're maybe doing something else during the day. But delegation is certainly a big one. I know that when I was early in my career in management, I was very much a micromanager and afraid to let other people do work because I didn't think they could do it as well as I could, and I was wrong. They quite often did it a lot better than I did. So once you get it, it's hard to let that go when you're young and you're particularly if it's something you're responsible for and you know that someone else is going to see it and someone else is doing the work. You're afraid that they're going to make a mistake and it's going to reflect badly on you. I would really encourage you to let people have that opportunity. Like I said, give them the rope that they need, and because one thing it's done for me is freed up a lot of time. I have no problem in giving work to other people, and they appreciate it.
Do you have anything to add, Ken?
No, I mean, setting work-life balance as a priority is the key. So I echo what the others said.
All right, perfect. I think that we're out of time for today, but let's give our panelists one more round of applause. Thank you so much for coming. And for those of you interested in collecting Learning Passport points, please make sure that you have that page filled out. And again, I will reiterate that Miriam and Allison will come to you, so stay in your seats. All right.
So Janet, both my brother and sister.
You like those things?